Blog Talk Radio.
Let everyone know that the regulars march for Lexington and Concord. The British are coming!
Why is no one anywhere in the world telling you the truth and telling you to prepare? I will tell you that I had a network, one of the big three, a network official actually tell me in the last 2 years, Glenn, we all know what's coming. This is a quote. But we have a responsibility not to tell the American people because they'll freak out.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
I chose my friends carefully. The more politically active black students, the foreign students, the Chicanos, the Marxist professors.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
But I also believe a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
I asked, well, what is going to happen to those people that we can't re-educate, that are die-hard capitalists? And the reply was that they'd have to be eliminated. They estimated that they would have to eliminate 25 million people in these re-education centers.
That was the voice of Larry Grathwohl, former undercover operative, describing the Weather Underground's plans at a national meeting in 1969. Bill Ayers, President Obama's future mentor and ghost autobiographer, attended those discussions as a leader of the Weathermen. Ayers' associates built and detonated murderous terror bombs. Ayers is a self-described lifelong communist revolutionary. Barack Obama began his political life in Bill Ayers' living room. In 1969, Ayers and the Weathermen already planned to exterminate President Obama's so-called bitter clingers, religious gun owners who would resist his vision of social progress. They have been working on this for generations, but they still have one thorny problem to overcome. The Americans are not yet disarmed and helpless.
At the beginning, Hitler didn't look like or talk like a monster at all. He talked like an American politician.
Those men raped that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns the iron rods pierced didn't do it. The tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand?
We are not weak, and we're not going to take it anymore. Know your enemy, ladies and gentlemen, and whoop their asses. The Robert Rule Show starts in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Robert Rule Show. I am your host, Robert Rule. A lot to get to tonight, a lot. So I'm going to start with the news, ladies and gentlemen. Here are your headlines this evening. Cruz, Russians openly laughing at Obama. Putin continues buildup. Update, city fails Fed stress test as Goldman, Bank of America alter plans. Twitter stock twerks. Whatever the hell that means. The man who would be king. Murdoch picks Lachlan. Terror grips Ebola hit West Africa. And there are concerns about it here. Fear, confusion grip Guinea as death toll rises. Bat eating ban, warning on rats. Generation X more likely to have diabetes than baby boomers. You notice how the health keeps getting worse, ladies and gentlemen? Sibelius says, oh well. John Boehner says, what the hell is this, a joke? Reed defends people not educated on how to use the internet. Health law penalizes wrong insurance 18 times more than no insurance. Nevada navigators convicted of battery, fraud, and criminal endangerment. I told you, the navigators was just a way for them to get their people into jobs, and good-paying jobs at that. How Drudge and other Obamacare victims can escape the Liberty tax. Feds to require casinos to vet high rollers and funds. Goats, chickens, pigeons found with throats slashed in D.C. park. Some people are accusing Satanists, and Satanism is on the rise, ladies and gentlemen. If you noticed, when people lose all morality, that tends to be the way they go. Ordinary Russians impose personal sanctions on Obama. Officials dump iPads over spy fears. Alabama congressional candidate shoots up Obamacare bill. College football players win bid to unionize. So we're going to let school kids unionize. Assailants break Jewish teacher's nose in Paris. Draw swastika on his chest. Or her chest, doesn't say. Charlotte mayor faces public corruption charges, accused of taking bribes. Ladies and gentlemen, most of them take bribes. The only way they get caught is if they decide not to go along. For Dems, politicians in handcuffs point to image problems. Paul Ryan says immigration reform a question of when, not if. So if you're a Paul Ryan Republican, you might think about the donkey, because that's where you're headed. Senator Sessions, Obama has made dramatic nullification of law. Border Patrol releasing illegal immigrants into South Texas. Graham says some administration officials are antichrist. Some? That's putting it lightly. Giuliani blast de Blasio. People are talking about moving out of the city. They've been talking about moving out of there for a long time. Democrats count on pot to pump the vote. I doubt that's going to happen, because it was the libertarians who made that possible, not the Democrats. Obama disapproval hits new high. Up to 10,000 marijuana convictions could be overturned in Colorado. Blah, 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 blah. In other news, Ukraine crisis. How much war does Washington want? Company wants you to eat your favorite celebrity. CIA, Al-Qaeda using Syria as base of operations to attack the West. Paul, why can't Obama unilaterally end the NSA spying, which he could? But what's going to happen is, just like Rush Limbaugh said today, what's going to happen is, since the Republicans have no balls in Congress, what's going to end up happening is the Democrats are going to blame the Republicans for the spying and all that other good stuff when the election comes up. And speaking of election, I heard something that got me real fired up today, and I wish I had a clip to play of it. I heard a Dave Joyce commercial, Congressman Dave Joyce. It said that he had voted to repeal Obamacare numerous times. Well, yeah, because his puppet masters said, go ahead and vote for this, and we're all going to vote for it because it'll never pass the Senate. So, of course, you're going to try to pass bills that'll never pass the Senate. But what did pass that passed the Senate? 87 Republicans, including Dave Joyce, voted to fund Obamacare. They don't tell you that in the commercial. Then they said Dave was a, quote, fiscal conservative who doesn't believe in waste, yet he voted for the omnibus spending bill that was over 2,000 pages that they only had 48 hours to read. And I started to chuckle, but then I almost went to tears. And I started pulling a Glenn Beck. Because if you think about it for a minute and how sad that is, that they're lying in commercial ads And the dumbed down public has no friggin' clue. Even your elected representatives, which if they're too dumb to look up a voting record, or they're too lazy to look up a voting record, or they just want to go along because they're sucking on the power teat, then maybe they shouldn't be there. And maybe you need to unelect them. I see too many of them going along, and they don't deserve to be there. How can you lead people if you're falling for the crap? I really don't understand. I mean, don't people want somebody that's going to stand up? I'm tired of sitting down. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your headlines this evening. Oh, and by the way, we have David Macko joining us tonight for a little bit. Mike, what's going on tonight, brother?
Hey, how's it going, Rob? How are you tonight?
Oh, peachy.
Oh boy!
So you heard the Joyce commercial?
Yeah, it's politics as usual, I guess. Politics as usual.
You got something going on in the background. Is that the show?
Oh, hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah, give me 1 second. But it's politics as usual, man. I've seen the mud start flinging down from both sides. So it's like, wow. Wow.
Well, here's an interesting article, Mike, that I think you could appreciate. I'm going to read it right here. This is by Alan West. Now, I don't trust Alan West, but I have heard this story a few times now, and so I want to read this. It says, Boehner, McCarthy, Cantor joined forces with the left to defeat conservatives. There is so much talk about the Republican Party unifying and focusing on winning the upcoming 2014 midterm elections. However, the establishment pundits lay blame at the feet of the so-called right wing for hindering the success of the Republican Party. Many seem to have forgotten the very dedicated and focused conservative grassroots movement that enabled the GOP to become the majority in the House. The phenomenon called the Taxed Enough Already Tea Party has since 2009 redefined the arena of politics in America. Now, of course, Colonel West isn't going to give credit, and this is why I don't trust him, to the real Tea Party that started in 2007. We know the Obama administration utilized the Internal Revenue Service to destroy the Tea Party effects in the 2012 election cycle after their resounding success in 2010. As we draw closer to 2014 cycle, we're beginning to see the military maneuver known as the double envelopment. What do you think about that? That's
You know what? To be quite frank, I'm not a big fan of Bonner. I'm not a big fan of Cantor. That's Cantor, I'm sorry. I say Cantor, but
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of McCain. I think those gentlemen are on the way out. I think the party, is redoing itself, especially like with Rand Paul. Rand Paul's not, the old establishment, so-called, quote, white guy. So I'm not surprised. Surprised.
But let me tell you how Ohio plays into this, besides John Boehner. Next weekend, John Boehner, Eric Cantor, Kevin McCarthy, and 25 other members of Congress are flying to Amelia Island, Florida, to collaborate with a group dedicated to defeating conservatives in Congress. The Republican Main Street Partnership, headed by Stephen LaTourette, former congressman in the 14th District, is hosting the event at the Ritz-Carlton on Amelia Island. Steve LaTourette, a liberal Republican, I can't even call him a Republican, Mike. Former congressman from Ohio, is the face in the front of the group. LaTourette is good friends with John Boehner, not to mention Dave Joyce. A lot of people are speculating that LaTourette bowed out at the right time to allow his buddy to get in there. LaTourette's group is funded by the vast left-wing conspiracy, according to an email inviting people to the event. people that are attending have donated $5,000 to the PAC.
Ooh, why do they need it for Ritz? I don't get it. I mean, that's just, you know,
well,
what?
They got money to spend.
Well, here's the thing, Rob, about that. Okay, you know, I'll be very, very fair tonight. Okay, forget their politics, forget their thinking. Just alone by going to the Ritz for a secret meeting, you know, that's not trying to bring new people in the party. That kind of gives the party a bad image that these Republicans meet at the Ritz.
Well, Mike,
you know,
that's because they don't want new people in the party. They want the good old boys club. They want to keep it the way it is, put their puppets in there, and keep stealing all the money.
Well, I'll tell you, like I told you last night, they're technically not stealing money because they changed the laws in order to get some money.
I understand the whole quote unquote technically and this, that, and the other thing, but I mean, let's call a spade, you know?
I think, you know what, it's more waste money for their friends. I mean, it's lobby. That's Washington. You know, I don't like it. You know, I think we should be, you know, I'm a fiscal conservative. You know, I don't think we should be in 138 countries with, you know, with military bases. You know, and people can say, well, Mike's anti-military, just as I've been, you know, called some other things. Because, you know, I tell it how it is, and if people get upset, oh well. They don't feed my family, and, you know, they don't tell me what to do, you know. So, you know, this is the way it's been going, as you know, Robert, for so many years. 138 countries we have military bases in. Do you believe that? 138 of them. So this is the system. It's like a nonstop train, bro.
Well, you're an isolationist then. I mean, if you want to stop wasting money overseas and bring some of our military men and women home, then you're an isolationist, Mike.
Well, you know what's funny? You know what gets me irked? I'll tell you what gets me irked, okay? When we went to Iraq, good or bad, okay? Wrong or right? I mean, Saddam Hussein was a dictator. I don't care what anybody says. Did Rumsfeld and them get him in power? Yes, they did. Were they doing?
Well, now you're a conspiracy theorist.
Well, it's not conspiracy.
If you keep going, if you keep going, Mike, then you're a racist.
But listen for a second. Here's the funny thing. You know, call me whatever you want. I tell you how it is, and you know what. But anyway. The whole point about it is when we went to Iraq, wrong or right, the Europeans were crying and complaining. Well, we don't want this. Well, you know what? We're going to shut our military bases then. We're not going to give you any more money. We're not going to help your economies. You know, and now, you know, what Russia did, you know, and I'm going to say something, you know, very unpopular. I don't care what Putin does. You know, somebody on the news said tonight, Putin's trying to rebuild his country while our country is being destroyed. You know, you got to give kind of props for that.
And that's their reasoning to go to war, right?
You know, we should not go to war. Number one, we're $17 trillion in debt. We're going on 18 now. The veterans keep getting rescheduled for surgeries they need. You can't even take care of the wounded from the prior wars. Kids are going hungry on the street. You know, just last week, I met a needy family. You know, and you know, ladies crying. And the guys crying too. No money, no food for their kids. You know, kind of got to feel bad for them. And since I don't give to church every Sunday, you know, I gave them $10, and I said, you know, that's all I got, guys. I'm sorry, I'm not a rich guy. You know, I got a kid at home and a wife. You know, and I'm the only one working. But you know, if I can get $10, did you know if we spent 1/4 of what we spent on wars, we could feed every person in America for 10 years?
Right.
It perplexes me. Where's the logic? Where's the facts? And you know, nobody's answering it except, you know, I like what Rand Paul's doing.
Well, I have Dave Macko on the line, Mike. He's going to talk to us for a little bit. He's going to tell us what he thinks about that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dave Macko, congressional candidate for the Libertarian Party. Dave, how you doing?
I agree with fine. I agree with everything both of you have said. The real enemies of our armed forces are the enemies of the liberty and the enemies of the human race who send them into unconstitutional, unnecessary wars to die needlessly. And these traitors, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, should be tried and hanged for treason. That includes Obama and Bush eventually. I'd like to update you on the situation with the Libertarian Party versus Kasich and the Republican gang. Charlie Earl and Steve Lineberry, our candidates for governor and for attorney general, are off the ballot so far. The federal judge Watson ruled against us, but he did state that the Ohio Republican Party obviously was involved in the shenanigans that got them off the ballot. We are appealing. They may not be on the ballot for the primary, but we expect them to be on the ballot in November. Now, we also have 2 write-in candidates so that everyone in Ohio can vote Libertarian and join the Libertarian Party. That's the only way to join the Libertarian Party of Ohio and apply to be a member, a delegate to the National Convention at the end of June, which is in Columbus. Our write-in candidates are Bob Bridges, Bridges, for Auditor of State, and Kevin Nedler, that's spelled Knedler, for Secretary of State. He's our state chairman. I am on the ballot. All I need is 1 vote in the primary to be on in November, and if I have to, I can crawl the half mile to the voting booth to do that, so that's not a problem. So that's where Libertarian Party versus Kasich stands right now. I know you gentlemen are still trying to make the Republican Party into a constitutional, pro-American, pro-liberty force. God bless you. I just don't have the stomach for it. I've seen many good people try that for the last 60 years. And again, I only want you to know that consider us as Plan B, and we have a home for you if you finally give up on the Republican Party.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. But, Dave, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You see, the Republican Party is on a downward spiral, and what on being on the outside looking in, what do you think is the cause of that?
Obviously, the conspiracy which is trying to rule the world by means of possibly setting off a third world war or a race war here in the United States, by putting up front men like Obama to totally shred the Constitution and promote presidential dictatorship, to crash our economy as they did in 2008 for the Depression. All of these efforts are designed to destroy America, and their suppression of the good people in the Republican Party all the way back from at least 1952 with Robert Taft, and then in 1964 with Barry Goldwater, who was the last Republican candidate for president I voted for, also the first, and with people, other patriots like John Schmitz and John Ashbrook and currently Ron Paul. What they did to Ron Paul was an atrocity. He's the greatest living American statesman, and they treated him like dirt. Just for that, they should be totally condemned and repudiated. So the enemy is, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'd like to have time to be one because it's the best way to understand the world. But I'm a conspiracy factist. I have, since about 1996, I haven't had time to study conspiracy theory too much. There's so much conspiracy fact to absorb and assimilate. I just haven't had time to get back to the theory yet. But it's important. It's very important to do so. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, right now, with the Republicans that are in the House, it seems as though they're trying to bring the party down by keeping conservatives out. I mean, do you see that?
Not, of course. Not only that, they're showing such cowardice and a lack of any integrity. If Obama were a white man, he would have been impeached 2 or 3 years ago. They're either cowards or traitors. You'll say the Senate is controlled by the Democrats, but the mere fact of 218 members of the House of Representatives accusing him publicly of all the crimes that he's committed would slow him down in his activities to enslave us. Yes, he's only a puppet. They're going to put up other puppets after he's gone, but unless we cut the strings of the puppets, they'll continue to get worse and worse. There has to be an accounting. Therefore, if I am elected, the first thing I would do, that Barack Hussein Obama be impeached for murder and other war crimes, for treason, for his attempts to totally destroy the Constitution and replace it by dictatorship. I know I've said this before, but it's worth repeating. He treats the Constitution like a piece of toilet paper.
Right, and this would be, if something like that were to go down, others would be tried just like at the Nuremberg trials for going along with it.
Well, one of the reasons that Obama should be impeached is that he is an accessory after the war crimes of the Bushes, especially George Bush. Veterans for Peace, which is generally considered a more liberal leftish organization, called for impeaching Obama 3 years ago. I'm very proud to be a member of Veterans for Peace for that. Oh, before I forget, let me give you my new website, mackoforliberty.org. I'm still working on it, so look at it now and come back every few days to watch it. It will be growing greatly over the next few weeks.
I'm going to keep you here for a little bit, Dave, and I want you to listen.
I'm glad to stay till 11.
I want you to listen to this, and I want you to give me your thoughts, and I want Mike to chime in too. This is a little compilation I put together for this show. Well, I actually edited it. I didn't put it together. This is from the Alex Jones Show. But it just goes to show, I talked about elected representatives buying into the lies and all of this traitorous behavior, and they're not fit to serve. And this is a perfect example. It's the only thing that I could find that clearly states exactly what I'm thinking here. And I want to go ahead and play that real quick. As soon as I could find it. I know I downloaded this. Boy, this thing is not cooperating with me tonight.
While you're doing that, let me say that I regard Alex Jones as the most important pro-American, pro-Constitution news source in this country. I believe he may have saved us from very bad events. I don't know if you listened several months ago when he was talking about the movement of nuclear weapons from a fort in Texas to
to South Carolina.
To South Carolina, yeah. I personally believe, I can't prove this. I don't have any insider information, of course. I personally believe, though, he may have saved us from a major atomic attack, a major false flag operation. He will, if there's any honest history, if we manage to turn this around and restore the Republic and restore the Constitution, Alex Jones will go down as one of the great patriots of our time, right, along with people like Ron Paul.
Right. Here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, this you can't get more truthful than this. This is so blatantly honest.
Covering this news every day does get to me because of the seriousness of the entire situation and how delusional and mentally ill the general public is getting. I'm seeing phenomenons that are just incredible, where people are breaking down completely and going off into their own fantasy lands now and not even aware of what's going on in their own lives. They just believe everything's all right, or they believe because they're control freaks that gives them power over everybody, or they believe it's okay to shoot a homeless man a bunch of times in the back and then say that it's okay because they said they're okay and no grand jury dare indict God government. And they just say it's okay to throw nuclear reactors in the ocean. I mean, we told you that radiation levels all over the West Coast are, on average, at least double what they should be, according to background radiation. And in some areas, 14 times higher. And we went out with our reporters and made Dinosaur Media cover it in the San Francisco Chronicle, the Sacramento Bee, the other publications, San Jose Mercury News. Here it is today. This is out of Reuters. U.S. Navy to test homes for radiation on San Francisco Island. The U.S. Navy plans to test hundreds of homes for radiation in a remote San Francisco neighborhood after an object containing radium was found beneath an unoccupied residence in the area last fall, city officials said Tuesday. That is not what's causing radiation to be up all over the area, by the way, folks. In the coming weeks, Navy officials, not servants, will begin surveying about 600 homes on Treasure Island, a man-made landmass in San Francisco Bay that once served as a naval base, said Bob Beck, director with the city's Treasure Island Development Authority. A full plan for the survey is still being developed, but officials will likely use handheld scanning devices on the ground floors of homes to detect possible radioactivity underneath them. In the event of a radiological survey of a housing unit reveals health concern, the Navy will take immediate action plans to protect the residents. Yes. So what do we do? Everybody's asking about radiation being up all over the coastline of San Francisco. What do we do? Well, we just go find one hot spot and make it all about that. That's what went on at the board meeting. I'd say 98% chance. That's a standard deal. Standard PSYOP. Continuing, but we are forcing him to cover it, and I guess that's what matters. Here it is, a NASA-funded study, industrial civilization headed for irreversible collapse. And there is another report out on that today. NASA doesn't think the world is ending, and journalists should stop implying that, says the International Business Times, and they try to spin back the article. Well, NASA and the British Ministry of Defense and the Defense Department say they believe there will be a massive reduction in standard of living, and that, quote, we are unsustainable, and the industrial civilization as we know it will collapse. I don't know from looking at all the numbers if that's completely accurate, but it does lean that way, especially when Agenda 21 is modeling the world under UNESCO as the global treaty to implode economies, to make the population poor, to live off government handouts produced by the largesse of factory farming and factory production of baubles, which are then sold as the signets of success and societal wealth, not actual property and family and not being in debt. They're getting rid of all the old symbols of true independence and replacing them with, well, I'm part of a group. That's my value, or I'm part of a club, or I'm a trendy, or I get government handouts. I'm part of that group. They're taking all the real rights and replacing them with faux rights, that the trendies grovel like sycophantic baby birds as the poison is vomited into their filthy mouths. Brainwaves are lowering. The IQs are lowering. People, on average, are in a highly suggestible, near trance state, medically on record. Look it up. Look it up. Just type in brainwaves lowering. Television makes people more suggestible. You'll get BBC. You'll get MIT. You'll get University of Texas, DARPA, psychology department funded programs. The system knows this because they're the authors of it. And have you ever seen children watching television? After a few minutes, they're drooling, their mouths are open. You're sitting there talking to them going, honey, 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 it's lunch, it's lunch. And like, you look at your wife and you go, we better not let them watch television. But then you still want to take them to a movie. You still want to let them watch the Olympics or whatever. And then there's all the social engineering during the commercials. It's a mind fog, and the mind fog is increasing. And so I can't get mad at people. It's just extremely frustrating, ladies and gentlemen, to be crazed for liberty and to be totally freaked out. And I want people's prayers for America, for the world, and for sanity, and for myself to have sanity. Because even in my private life over the years, I don't use a lot of profanity. I have a large vocabulary and don't need to. But I've caught myself in private being more profane. I've caught myself on air with mild stuff on air. I should be more gentlemanly to control myself, to not let, because we've all got to hold it together, folks. I mean, the missing nuke story is real. And you saw them then start firing the entire upper brass over the nukes and large swaths of the mid and low level, right down to launch officers. And then announcing, nukes are going to hit the East Coast right where we said they went. I mean, that's scary, folks. I woke up at about 4 in the morning last night in the dark with the French bulldog snuggled up next to me, Captain. And I literally got up and went in the kitchen and got a glass of filtered water. And I just sat there in the dark, leaning over the kitchen sink, going, oh, my Heavenly Father, this is all real. It's all real. My wildest analysis, my gut analysis of this all along has been right on. And I am exposing people that are smuggling nukes out of Dyess Air Force Base. I'm exposing people that run child kidnapping rings worldwide. They launder $500 billion a year in drug money in the U.S. publicly in the big 6 banks, and no one gets in trouble. They own the Congress. They own most of the police. They own the FBI and the Justice Department. The Justice Department got caught shipping guns into Mexico to false flag the Second Amendment. The government got caught running al-Qaeda in Egypt and Libya and Syria. They're putting cancer viruses in vaccines, hepatitis in many of the vaccines. They're creating the new flu the year before, and it even comes out in the medical studies that they released the H1N1 a year before it came out 5 years ago. And this stuff comes out, and I've got medical doctors telling me it a year before it comes out in the news. I mean, imagine they know MSG brain damages children. They know it rewires their brains. And we just let everybody eat it. Now, there's Forbes. Scientists will create a new deadly flu strain just to prove they can. No, that's not why they're doing it. H1N1 was a simulant that they released the year before. This came out in the EU. This was declassified. I had the head of the EU program on. I had Steak Knife on and other British commandos who staged terror attacks to blame it on the IRA. And then one of them was killed the week after he was on. I had the D.C. madam on, and they killed her right after it. You know how many people I've had on they've killed? I'm not sitting here saying, oh, wow, Alex, you're amazing. That's not even what I'm saying. I'm saying most people could not handle what I can handle. And you know why I can handle it? Because I was a maniac before I knew all this stuff. And so I'm already crazy, folks. So, what are they going to do to me? I get it. The average, and by crazy, I'm already wild-minded enough and primitive enough that I can handle this stuff. The average person, I get it, cannot handle it. And that's why evil worldwide always takes over, because the average person just wants to go home and eat dinner and hang out with their kids and watch a movie or go out and tend their sheep if it was 5,000 years ago, and they just want to go down and talk to the town elders and sit around and look at the sunset. I get it. You don't want to hear about what's happening off in Rome 1,000 miles away. If you, lived up in Austria. What's Austria today? The Austriagoths. But you better care, because they're going to come and take your family and make you slaves. If you go back 2,000 plus years ago. 2,060 years ago. When Caesar's forces were taking over those areas. And so I know what they're doing. I sit here and I watch a real horror movie every day, a science fiction takeover with the robot cars and the robot aircraft, and they're openly in all the publications saying, again, I go back to one I've mentioned probably 500 times, Bill Joy, owner of Sun Microsystems, top engineer, says, I went to a globalist meeting with 200 and something top leaders, and we made the decision to kill everybody. We could just let you have fun and play in the future, but that hurts the environment. So, the consensus is we'll just get rid of humanity. And he put that in Wired magazine. back in, what was it, 2000, the April issue. And it's so frustrating. I mean, it's so frustrating when it's just all a big game. Like yesterday I was driving home, and they had every trailer pulled over, almost causing wrecks everywhere, causing traffic in Austin, Texas. And you know, by the time I saw a fifth white trailer pulled over, and motorcycle cops running around like it was the end of the world, and almost getting run over, and walking out in traffic and blocking people to chase down the next yellow Ryder trucks, white moving trucks, U-Hauls, big double trailers, semis pulling trailers. And, of course, the cops were told, I'm sure, oh, we've got a Homeland Security tip, there could be a weapon. I don't think it was a drug tip because they were running around like they were saving the world. And, of course, they do that to get everybody used to just running random checkpoints. It's a drill. The cops don't even know it's a drill. I could tell by looking at them in the eyes in traffic, watching these crazed police in their cruisers pulling people over in unmarks and just freaking out all over Austin. Because I drove from work through it for like 45 minutes of traffic, watching it and dodging police. I personally saw them almost have 2 wrecks. And you go, why are you even bringing that up? It's just because I know how the programming works. The Threat Fusion Center tells them, we think there could be a truck bomb. I bet that's what it was. Or they thought it was a really big bust. Like, you're going to be famous when you find it. It's 100 kilos of cocaine. You know, that some cowboy got through the border and didn't pay their cut to El Jefe. I mean, I don't know, but the way they were acting, they were told, we've got a terror threat, 5,000 pounds of plastic explosive. They're going to blow the Capitol up. I mean, I don't know, but in fact, can a cop call in? Disguise your voice? Maybe even tell the folks that answer the phone if you want to go on air what it was? Maybe I want to put you on air because I can tell if it's a cop in Austin. In fact, I wasn't going to open the phones up, but I do kind of want to know. Can somebody in Austin tell me what that was yesterday? It was like I don't know what you call it. It wasn't like a checkpoint where they shut the highway down. It was police on exit roads and the highway running around, looking in the back, slamming it and running, and then pulling out in traffic and running to the next white trailer. How many trailers there are? And they obviously didn't have a license plate number. They didn't have a general. They were pulling over orange ones, white ones, mainly white ones, and it was just ridiculous. Meanwhile, the government's run by people that put cancer viruses in almost all the vaccines on record. I mean, we're being murdered in mass, and Obama says a nuke is going to, go off in New York. That's his number one fear. When there's missing nukes. And when the years before they had the cruise missiles that came up missing. Remember that? Oh, I bet he's worried. That would make his approval rating go from 30 points up to, 99. People be so scared in militant enthusiasm, primitive psychology. You get to attack the Russians or whoever you blame for it, the Iranians. You get to take liberties. You get to pose as a savior. They'll have Obama out there, on the blast zone edge saying, whoever did this is going to pay. And people will say, Alex, we know you said this was coming, but shut up about this on air. We're going to take you off the local stations. But I mean, when they do that, it won't even be that. When they set a nuke off, they'll just send a hit team over to kill me. Oh, Alex Jones was found dead in his car. He shot himself. He'd been depressed. Never will I kill myself. Never. I don't particularly want to go through a bunch of pain if I ever get cancer or really sick, but to get the word out, I will accept Darth Vader level medical care. I will take maximum. I will go the whole 9 yards. I want every bit of life, kicking and screaming and clawing, will you drag me out of this world? Not because I even want to stay in this world, but because I want to stay in the fight on top of a heap of enemies clubbing their heads in the info war. I am not going to bow down to these scum. I'm going to give my whole person over to the fight. And Lord knows it's ugly, but it's the best I can give. It's all I can give. And people need to find the animating contest of liberty. They need to find their spirit and understand we're under attack and not want to be part of it anymore. And to tell the system, we know what you're up to. You're not protecting us. You're feeding on us. It's like a guy protects some pigs he's going to slaughter at Christmas time. Slaughter in the fall for Christmas hams. You don't protect us. You squat on us. And all of you that work for the system, 99.999999999. The real number we've done of the elite versus the 7.5 billion was 0.00000, I think like 8 9 zeros and 0.42 or something. I don't remember. I mean, that's how many superclass there are in the globalist own words, the Kissinger Institute, the Kissinger Group, 6,000, openly say they own us and we're a bunch of cattle slobs. Well, you're sure helping turn people into cattle, but let me tell you something, Jack. I'm not cattle, and I'm not here to be fed on by you people. And by the way, I've looked at you and what the art you're into and what you elites are into. You people are ugly. You people are stunted. You people are mentally ill. You are certainly not meant to run the whole show. And that's why you've got to do it from stealth, because you're the opposite of chivalry. You're the opposite of honor. You're the opposite of everything good. You are coward, filthy, jealous, envious, grasping, selfish scum. And there are a lot of beautiful, good people out there, and it makes me sick to see them in a trance, a literal medical trance. The general public are in medical trances. I was watching ESPN this morning with the sound off, and they had some music video about basketball players, and it was them on the bus and everyone worshiping them, but almost like in a martial law type deal. And then I was reading the closed captioning of the music and how great they are, and everyone worshiping Sign My Ticket. And it's meant for the fans to all watch that and think this pumped up, arrogant, narcissist person with this look of sublime pleasure that they're being worshipped. That's totally abnormal. Is then going into the basketball thing. But the weak-minded sit there and watch that in a trance and believe that's God, believe that is unattainium. They believe that is the ultimate in society and civilization, so that their literal spirit is bound to worshiping rock stars, worshiping hip-hop people, worshiping sports people. When, I mean, I worship the Creator, not the creation, but at least the ancients, looked at the night sky and comets and the beauty and the sound of a babbling brook, and the animist worshipped that. They worshiped the woman's power to create a baby. They worshiped life. They worshiped male, virile power. They worshiped being honorable and strong. Not facsimile, mindless garbage designed to absolutely put a spell on people. That's what it is. I put a spell on you. To where they don't even know that they're on a planet hurtling through deep space orbiting a sun. They don't even know they're sitting on the ruins of fantastic life that came before us. They don't even understand the mysteries of the universe and the time-space continuum and the interdimensional layers and just the trillions of galaxies and the untold incredible gift of consciousness. They're dead already. The system killed them from birth. If they couldn't physically abort them, they set them in front of television to become matrix heads who plug in and interface with a false reality controlled by a bunch of sycophantic narcissists, psychopaths, eugenicists, control freaks who get to then sit there and take our species and literally sabotage it, vandalize it, mutate it, destroying our actual DNA, wrecking the global biosphere DNA in a giant act of mass sacrifice of the planet. A huge planetary sacrifice is Satan's goal, to destroy the planet after squeezing every ounce of torture and pain out of it on a mass scale, just as a Jeffrey Dahmer for days leans over their victim, chained down, torturing them, doing the most horrible things to them. The devil takes thousands of years to slowly build a system to wreck everything and to feed and suck off the human suffering of the babies and the innocence of the women and the destroyed dreams and the wrecked civilizations and the sunken treasure of humanity never to be fully realized, sucking out the very essence of God's incredible creation made in His image, sacrificing God's creation in a vain attempt to pull down the mighty foundations of the Creator of all the four corners of the interdimensional universe. I, imperfect as I am, stand against that, and I say join me in this quest.
All right, I'm glad I cut it off right there because he is about to go off. If you know Alex Jones, he's known for going off, but he makes great points there. The people are so dumbed down, they don't even know what they're doing half the time. They're walking around in a trance. Dave, speak to that.
First of all, I think you neglected to say that for people who want to hear the rest of that or who want to listen to Alex Jones tomorrow, and as long as they need to every day, that's Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Yeah, Alex Jones is the combination of Paul Revere and Patrick Henry. I heard most of that today, and it was well worth hearing again. I think the people are beginning to wake up. It's very slowly, and I think the fact that we have young, articulate, intelligent patriots such as Alex Jones and Adam Kokesh and Edward Snowden and Bradley Manning, but especially Alex Jones, his ability to communicate with the people, to inspire people. He has obviously wakened up hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Americans. I'd love to be on your show sometime.
Mike, what did you think about that?
Wow, overwhelming. Basically what I could say is he's got some good points. So, I mean, in order to sneak a nuke, you'd have to have hundreds of people do it, Rob. I'm thinking, okay? Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an expert, on nukes or atomic weapons.
Well, according to the guards at the base, and that's where everything originated, they had called the show to let them know that their superiors came with the orders to haul them out of there and haul them to South Carolina. And it never made the mainstream media. And if it doesn't make the mainstream media and only a few people know about it, well, then it can be done.
Right. Well, I didn't know all that info, but
when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, Lindsey Graham said that same day. No, it was the very same day Lindsey Graham said, what would happen if a nuke went off right here in South Carolina?
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, but what's even weirder is the mainstream media never even reported on it.
Well, I could tell you when people worry more about their Xboxes than they care about their freedom, or they care about a lot of things more than their freedom. Then that's showing you sheeple people. They're going to follow anything basically.
Well, I told you the story. I went to a house that had 10 people living in it.
Right.
They had an Xbox, a computer, and a big screen TV. No furniture.
Hey, you know what? They got that. They're good as gold. They don't need anything else.
Right.
That's a lot of people, Rob, and it's just not just where you work. It's where we live. It's down the street. It's the communities next door. The thing I don't get is, a lot of people don't have food to buy or money for food, but they got money for iTunes or $500 iPhones.
Right.
I just don't get that. I mean, okay, you need a mobile phone today. I get it, okay? But, any carrier's got a free model or whatever you can get.
Well, all they want to do is watch people hit themselves in the nuts with hammers on YouTube. That's all they want.
Well, it's not only that, but also what it is. It's that thing called I want more than everybody else because I want to show off mentality. That's all it is. So that's how we've been inducted. I mean, we want to be like Justin Bieber, the idiot. Bieber's an idiot. You know that? I'll tell you. I was born in Germany to a commanding officer in the United States military. If I did this, what Bieber did, they would have tried to send me back to Germany, even though I'm, American citizen by birth. Just to get me out of the country.
He's an idiot with a lot of money, though.
But I call him Bieber Boy. I don't care if he's got a lot of money. He's still a little punk. If I ever see him, I'll tell him to go back to Canada. You know, because I'm sick and tired of seeing him. You know, let the idiots in Canada have him. You know, have him back. You know, we don't want him here. I mean, heck, you know, we carry pistols and, you know, we have semi-automatic rifles. You know, we don't have little, you know, pretty haircuts and you know, guys picking me up to put me in my my Cadillac. You know, did you ever see that picture, Rob, where they picked him up and they had to set him in his Cadillac because he was so small?
No.
This is what the youth are looking to today. What a good example, huh? But the veterans were gun-toting nuts, potential terrorists. You know.
All right, that's what the government calls you.
Well, it's not only the government, Rob. It's local people too. Some of them. You know, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, but that's where they get it. They get it from the media. They get it from the so-called representatives that are supposed to be representing the Constitution in America. They send our boys and girls overseas. War will screw up a person's head, and then they bring them back and call them crazy nut jobs and tell the police that they need to be watched.
Well, you want to hear what's funny? There's a lot of police officers that are those crazy veteran nuts too now. So the police laugh at them, you know? The police laugh at them. Like I was telling one police officer, buddy, I'm like, yeah, they're terrorists now. He looked at me, started laughing, because so am I. You know, we're in the same channel, so.
Yeah, but if you want to go into history, you talk about the book, the Night of the Long Knives. The people
right
that are enforcing these unconstitutional laws are going to be the very ones taken out before any of us.
Well, here's the thing, the way I look at it. Like I've always said on the show, maybe things need to get worse for people to open their eyes up. You get my drift? You get my drift, because we've had it too good here in America, you know, for so many years. Now that it's starting to get bad, take my paycheck every month. You should be happy. We'll give you enough money. We'll give you free housing in our compounds, like they had in Romania, the success school, the communist idiot. And we'll give you just enough to live on to rent video games from the local Family Video for 99 cents a week. You know?
Right. Dave, any thoughts?
Well, don't worry about things getting worse. They will, until we manage to remove all the traitors who are misruling us and replace them with Americans who believe in liberty and the Constitution and basic Christian principles.
But Dave, how do you wean people off this stupid behavior? These, you know, taking money that could be going to their kids' food and spending it on Xboxes and cell phones.
As the situation gets worse, as the economy goes into total collapse, hunger will wake up a lot of them. If World War III, as they certainly look like they're doing, that will wake up many people. The American people are waking up, not fast enough for us, of course, but I do believe they're waking up. One of these years, and this is one of the reasons I run for Congress every so often, or other offices, is that when they do wake up, they're going to repudiate the old corrupt parties and other institutions, and they will choose what is the means of their survival. If they don't, then we're doomed, of course. But we've got to keep trying. Just as you're doing.
I've been hearing a lot. I hear a lot. And what I've been hearing, and I was a victim of it too, that a lot of conservatives are losing their jobs. They know, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the no-fly, the no-buy, the no-work, the lists. They have lists of everybody. They know whether you're conservative or not, and those are seem to be the people losing those good jobs.
But you know what?
That's true, yeah.
Well, Rob, you know what? Let me tell you something. I got no king except God, and you know why that is? I work for myself, brother. I work for myself. Yeah, it's time tasking, gives me a headache sometimes, but you know, at the end of the day, I ask myself, is it worth it? You bet it's worth it, because you know what? If I have a client that gets snippy with me, I can say, hey, have a good day, good luck to you. That's it. Or if I get a phone call and say, you better not make anybody upset because, you know, you're going to lose business. You know, well, you know what? My business isn't, you know, here in this county. It's in a couple other counties. So I don't know what kind of politics, you know, I'm no big guy to make anybody mad at, you know, in the state or the federal level. So, you know, I work for myself, make my own money, man. You know.
Dave?
Well, we've got to keep persevering. It's a moral obligation. And if we don't do it, we're going to face a horrific situation, the same as in the Soviet Union or in Red China or in National Socialist Germany. So it's, you know, if people are afraid to speak out, they should be much more afraid of not speaking out. They should be much more afraid of what will happen if they do nothing.
Give us a history lesson, Dave, of other governments and what happened there.
How many hours do we have yet?
I've got time.
Okay. The enemies of the human race captured Russia. They hated the Tsar because he was a Christian. All of the Tsars were Christians, and some of them, and they never had an international bank in Russia. They never had a Federal Reserve type bank. That's one thing that the enemy didn't like. So they sent a gang of total criminals, including people like Leon Trotsky and Joseph Stalin and Vladimir Lenin, to literally capture the country. Then they took over the United States basically under Woodrow Wilson, an enemy of the human race. They imposed the income tax on the American people and the Federal Reserve System so that we could be sucked into World War I and finance it. Then after World War I, they overthrew the Tsar, they overthrew the German Empire, and they set, by their horrible mistreatment of Germany, they set the stage for Hitler and the National Socialists, who were thought of as an antidote to communism, but turned out not to be an antidote. They turned out to be almost as bad a poison. So then they had the Cold War to condition the American people to merge with other countries, to merge with the UN, which is set to become the one world government. And by the way, I don't think God likes the idea of one world government. Christians should look at what he did to the Tower of Babel, and it was the fact that Caesar Augustus established basically a one world empire over Western civilization in Rome. That was the time when God sent Christ back to earth. So this is a battle that's been going on a long time. It's a battle between good and evil. And there's no compromise between good and evil. So we have to keep fighting.
And you know, those words by Reagan never rang more true. If we lose freedom here, there's nowhere else to go except maybe Russia.
Oh, no. Years ago, I heard a Lithuanian speaker named Vilius Buzinas. He's dead now. He was able to go back to Lithuania to help straighten out his country after communism fell or was phased out, or whichever way you want to look at it. And he had been in the Soviet and the German National Socialist concentration camps, and I will always remember it. And he described how horrible it was. But I'll always remember one thing he said at the very end of his conversation, of his speech. He said that he had it very terrible. It was a horrible, horrible way to exist. But he had one advantage that the American people did not have. He had a place to which to seek sanctuary. We don't.
Right.
So there's really no alternative to fighting. I choose to do it through the Libertarian Party. You choose to try to straighten out the Republican Party, but whatever means you choose to do, we need to speak the truth, because God promised us, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Well, as I get louder and louder, I'm sure I'm going to be blackballed at some point in time. But I can't shut up, Dave.
Well, you need to get louder and louder. Look at Alex Jones. I believe the conspiracy made a big mistake about a dozen years ago. If they had assassinated him then, they probably could have gotten away with it. Now if they assassinate him, it will simply prove that everything he said is true, and it would magnify his influence 10 times over. Of course, we don't want to see it happen, but
right, kind of like they did with William Cooper, huh?
Probably, yes. Yeah, Cooper was taken out before he could become very better known. Fortunately, with the internet, we've broken the media control of the enemy. The establishment media is the enemy. The folks at American Free Press have said that for a long time, and they're absolutely correct.
So what do you think of this is totally off subject, but just came to mind. What do you think about the Chandra Levy case that's been in the news lately again?
Refresh my memory on that one. It's 11:08, and I had a busy day.
She was the one that was accused of having an affair with a congressman. You recall that?
Oh, and she was killed?
Yes.
Yeah, well, obviously this is all corruption. Earlier in today's broadcast, Alex was talking about the many people he had on his show who died soon afterwards, even though they said they'd never commit suicide.
Right,
so,
and that's something else.
Is all...
You bring that up. A lot of people don't know that. They call Alex Jones a conspiracy theorist, but he's had at least 20, 25 guests on his show and asked them to say on the show, I will not commit suicide. And he told them, he warned them.
Thanks for reminding me. I will not commit suicide.
Neither will I.
Good.
But
how about Mike?
No way I will.
All right,
Mike,
let's always do that now.
I don't even know if Mike knows this, but there's been 20, 25 people on that show, Mike, that have died, disappeared and died, or hung themselves after being on the show.
Well, I heard when he talked to the madam, I heard that. I listened to that show. I listened to that show that day, and she said she'd never. He asked her to say that she would never commit suicide, and she said she would never commit suicide. And what was it? Only a few weeks later, or a week later.
And the sheriff from the Oklahoma City bombing.
Black guy, yes, yeah. These diabolical right-wing extremists, they kill themselves, they tie themselves up and then blow their heads off with shotguns with 4 or 5 shots. It's diabolical. Yeah.
Yeah. Shot himself 5 times.
All right.
He fell on a knife 50 times.
Yeah. Well, James Forrestal, the first Secretary of Defense, he tied himself up. Then, when he was carefully tied up and hanged, he threw his body out of a hospital window 7 stories down. By the way, if you become prominent in the Patriot movement, don't go to any of the federal hospitals in Washington District of Corruption.
Right.
That's the same as suicide. Well, look at McCarthy. Joseph McCarthy was scheduled to leave the hospital. He died of good health.
Right.
John Ashbrook, here in Ohio. He was running against Howard Metzenbaum. Larry McDonald. There's a lot of them.
Right, and it continues today. And people just all they want to do is play their Xbox, talk on their cell phones. They don't even want to hear the word politics.
What about
They don't want to be involved with politics, but politics is involved with them.
Mike, you had something to say?
What do you think about the bankers? The bankers.
Yeah, they're suiciding themselves too. Alex was that a few days ago.
I think. Go ahead. I think the bankers are really committing suicide because they know a financial collapse is coming.
Well, some may be, but some are being silenced, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's why, like Rand Paul says, in the Fed or audit the Fed.
Both. You audit it first to find out where our money has gone and who's stolen it and whether it can still be recovered from them. And then you tell the American people, and they'll become angry enough to get rid of the Fed at that point.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
We should be very careful of talking about things that'll never happen, such as a libertarian president or a libertarian congressman or whatever, as long as we're led to the mindset by the enemy that something will never happen and something will never happen.
Well, I do love what you're doing, Dave, and I do agree with everything you say, but I've been on this earth for nearly 40 years. I haven't seen it yet, and I haven't even seen it come close. You know, libertarians are getting like 5-6% of the vote.
Ron Paul got into the run for Republican presidential candidate. That was a big step forward. Let me to put this on a little more positive note. Let's suppose that you could go back in time to 1765 and meet Washington and Jefferson and Franklin and even Hamilton and Madison and the other people who were going to become the founding fathers. And suppose you told them that in 10 years they would be at war with the mother country, the greatest military power in the world at that time. And that within 20 years they would win the war against the mother country and establish a concept of government, that the rightful powers of government come from the people, and that the purpose of government is to protect the God-given liberties. And suppose you told them that within 25 years they would establish this whole new concept of government. You would have been called crazy.
Do you know why I would have believed that, though, Dave? Because back then, the founders had weaponry comparable to the military. And the people weren't as stupid as they are today and preoccupied, and they could actually, well, they farmed for their livelihood. But a lot of people today, they're chained to their desks. They can't leave. They can't take time off. They can't, you know, they're like slaves. They don't have weapons comparable to the military.
They are slaves. Yeah, for a long time I used to say that citizens should be armed as well as the government. I no longer believe that. Citizens have to be armed better than the government.
Right, because today, to do what the founders did back then today, would not only take a bright population, which we don't have, it would take 10 times more to defeat this monstrosity.
Yeah, that's why the conspiracy established government or public schools. When I ran for state representative in 2010, I promoted my public education reform plan, and I hope anyone running for the state legislature who may be listening to us will take heed of this. I promoted the Macko public education reform plan on the basis of the fact it would solve every problem of the government schools. Basically, it would abolish the government, would have abolished the government schools. I used a 3-year time frame, but 2 or 1 would be just as good. Yeah, we're never going to be free again until we get rid of the government schools. The government schools are one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto, by the way. which everyone should read, because when you read it and read the 10 planks, including income tax and what is the Federal Reserve System, you'll see how communist we really are. And that'll wake people up. Also read 1984. I was just reminded of this recently. Obama's Common Core education program, which is to education as Obamacare is to health, which basically is intended to kill both. In Common Core, they actually teach the kids that 2 + 2 = 5. Now, do you remember when you read 1984, when O'Brien was brainwashing and totally breaking Winston Smith's will? He said that we'll teach you that 2 + 2 = 5, and you'll not only agree, but you will love it, and you'll love Big Brother. Well, it's Common Core
right.
1984, yeah. Of course, when you read 1984, everyone who's listening, read it as a warning of what we must fight against, not the way people like Hillary Clinton read it as a training manual.
Oh, jeez.
I couldn't resist that. I'm sorry. Sometimes my sense of humor gets the better of me. I'm sure there are people who read 1984 as a training manual.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Look at Feinstein. Look at Barry. Look at Joe Biden, Schumer, and the rest of that gang of scum.
They can make people believe whatever they want to. I was sitting in a restaurant the other day, and I had a couple black gentlemen saying these kids don't know anything today. They don't know about black history, and but they were spouting nonsense, stuff that wasn't even true. Like black people invented everything.
Yeah.
So they're teaching that in the inner cities, and then they're teaching something totally different in another place. They have it down. They know us. They know every move you're going to make before you do.
I try to take a balanced view. In some ways, the blacks have been totally misled, even more than white people. For example, if there was an honest black leadership, they would never have promoted anything like Ebonics. The one of the basic advantages that the blacks have over other minorities is they speak English. Now, if you teach them not to speak English, you're taking away their one major economic advantage. Another thing, the blacks their children are murdered in the womb at a higher rate than white people's. And also, the blacks in the ghetto are the innocent ones, the honest ones, are much worse, much more likely to be victims of crime because they're of the gun control that their own black leaders were supporting. On the other hand, 96% of them vote for Obama. You can't really have a high respect for their either intelligence or morals and still be honest about it. But they do have false leadership even more than the whites. Well, the female liberals have false leadership too.
Speaking of that, you said something and I just thought about it. Study just recently came out that there will be more minorities than whites here pretty soon. So
yeah, we have to stop the immigration invasion. We don't have an immigration problem. We have an invasion problem. I stressed this in all of my campaigns, but I do disagree with the position of the Libertarian Party on this issue. That it's suicide. Let's be blunt about it. The civilization, as we understand it, has been created and maintained basically by white people. It would be nice if that would change, but as of now, it's simply not reality. We have to stop the immigration invasion. President Eisenhower, and I don't think we should overly glorify him because there's a lot of problems he had. We could get into that for now. Did, though, stop the immigration invasion in 1954. His program was titled Operation Wetback, and in my last campaign in 2012, I proposed Operation Wetback 2, and this would he caused 2 million of them to go back home without restricting the rights of Americans, whether natural-born Americans or immigrants who legally came here and legally followed the rules and legally became citizens.
Well, here's what I'm tired
of. I like that term. I like that term, Operation Wetback, because it would infuriate the enemy.
I'm tired of people not assimilating. I'm tired of people not learning our traditions, our values. They come here and they want to raise their flag on top of ours, and then what do? We appease them. Our so-called leaders want to appease people in order to get the votes. You get the votes by doing the right thing. You get people to assimilate, and only then can things go smooth, because when you have an opposition that is gaining votes by giving people free stuff, you're never going to win against that.
You're absolutely correct. As far as you go, the only other problem which I think we have to face is that some people just aren't as assimilable as other people. And it does go by group. It includes racial aspects. It includes national aspects. It includes religious aspects. If you think that blaspheming your God is the reason to kill your neighbor, then you're not going to do very well. If you think your group has been superior for 4,000 years, you're not going to do very well either.
Right. And it's not about race. It's about unity and standing behind your country and your Constitution. And these people, a lot of people coming over here illegally, they don't understand our Constitution. They don't understand our traditions and way of life.
They don't understand liberty. Most of them many of them see nothing wrong with gun control. Many of them see nothing wrong with Obamacare or other communist programs which take away their liberty. They just don't have as much of a concept of liberty. Look at Mexico, for example. They revolted against Spain in 1810. They fought about 15 years. They went through an emperor, and then they established a constitution practically identical to the United States in the 1820s. But they only kept their constitution a dozen years before their first dictator, Santa Anna, came to power. We were able to keep our constitution from 1789 to 1861, and then again mostly from 1877 up to 1913. Of course, since then we've gone totally downhill, gone to hell. But
yes, right.
But so I don't know if it's racial or if it's cultural, but whatever it is,
the powers that be make it. The powers that be make it racial. Now, I look at it as what country you come from, the heritage there. Those people have always been accustomed to having some kind of dictator over them. Other countries overseas, very few people like Mike. Families come here and want to be free. That's because they've lived under communism and they know what to look for. But some people, like you say, are just prone to, hey, whatever, man, you can rule me.
Well, there have been surveys and polls which indicate this. There's a lot higher percentage of agreement to submit, to not the value or fight for liberty. Of course,
I tell you,
many native-born Americans are in the same situation now too. It's a sort of a mental infection that keeps spreading.
I tell you what. Let me find it real quick. I want to give you an example of what kind of people I want coming to my country. And of course, I'm not going to be able to find it in time. There it is. These are the kind of people that I want to come to my country and assimilate.
Those who are old enough to recall a government kind of falling under tyranny are speaking out against what's happening here in America, and it's probably pretty important that we listen up. So this is Manuel Martinez. He narrowly escaped Cuba in 1962 after being imprisoned for opposing Fidel Castro. He passionately defended the Second Amendment in front of Oregon lawmakers Thursday during a public hearing on proposed gun control legislation.
My name is Manuel Martinez, also known as Manny Martinez. I agree with my two predecessors here, but I have another issue here, which is the most important thing. Okay? This bill is a step forward, close to gun control, period. To disarm the American people, period. What I'm interested in know, what is behind this? They come here in those dog and pony show and try that they're going to protect people. You're going to protect nobody. I want to know what is behind it. Do you know what is behind it? The problem that we have in this country with this Marxism. Marxism is not coming. Marxism is here. Marxism has been in this country for quite a while. And the politicians allow that because they are ignorant or they are part of the plot. Don't sell me this. A very powerful man tried to sell me this 50-something years ago. I didn't buy it. Do you think you're going to buy it? Do you think I'm going to buy it now? After pushing 80 years? This is Marxism. Plain and clear. With everything. Communism, socialism, humanism, I heard that too in my native country. They put this dog and pony show saying, hey, we're going to protect you. No, what they did was enslave a country. They destroyed the country in the same way that this country is going to be destroyed if we continue in this round. I tell you what you're trying to do, sir. This is what you're selling here. This is what you're selling here. You are not selling protection. You don't care about if we die or leave. This is what you're selling. This is what they're selling here.
I'd be willing to trade 100 native-born Americans for 10 of him.
Right, me too.
Mhm.
Those are the kind of
or
people.
Even two or three. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to take a break for a couple of minutes. I'll be back.
All right,
okay?
Mike.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
I've been trying to get you to comment, but you haven't responded.
Well, I was letting Mr. Max speak. So, anyway, yeah, that guy gives tells it how it is. Big kahunas, man. You got to give him props for that. You know what I'm saying? You got to give him props for that because we both know he's probably joined us on the list. If you get my drift.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, he's been through it. He's been through the communism. A lot of immigrants who come here have been through the communism. But they come here the right way, and they learn our laws, and they learn our Constitution.
Right. But see, the thing is, the difference between, like, my parents and grandparents, Rob, and a lot of people's, grandparents. See, my grandparents made sure I learned what communism was, what a fascist state was, okay? and they burned it into me so I'd never forget. The issue is here, like I said earlier, we, the American people have had it too good for so many years until it burns them, and they figure out what is communism really, and that we're living under it. They're gonna keep living it and enjoying it. They're gonna love these free government handouts. See, everything's got a price to pay. It's like this guy today. I was at a client's. He was like so happy he's getting food stamps and welfare, right? And I said, okay. I said, I'm glad to hear that. I said, are you married to a girl? He goes, no, we're not. But we got 4 kids together. And you know what I told him? The government's got you by the kahoonies now, my friend. He looked at me and says, why? I says, now you're going to be paying child support every month. He says, no, I won't. We live together. It doesn't matter. When you collect state aid, you're automatically put on child support. You know that, right?
Yeah, a lot of guys a lot of people think bad of men who are in arrears, but what they don't know is you're paying for, it used to be that way. I don't know if the law has changed, but it used to be you paid arrears from the day that child was born, whether you live together or not.
Right. Well, the problem is, it's like this. If you're not married to your girlfriend and you live together, even though you as a man are working or she's as a woman working, and you have to get some kind of aid for your child, automatically the non-custodial parent is put on child support, even if the couple doesn't want it. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And if they don't, and if she doesn't take it and she refuses, they'll hold her for contempt. Yeah, it's like you got to play our program now. That's it.
They make money off of that too. They get the federal dollars, and they'll get that money. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. They take their license away if they don't pay. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. You've got tons of fathers out there who want to be a part of their child's life, but they can't because they're paying all that child support. And who does that child have to look up to? Nobody. Who's going to pay for their college tuition? Nobody, because the father has never been able to make he's never been able to start a business. He's never been able to make a life for himself because they take his income tax every year. And I even had a problem where, I was paying child support, and of course I was automatically in arrears. And where my son was born, the hospital he was born in, everything was paid. Do you know that hospital had the power to intercept that income tax, the money that was supposed to go to my son? And my ex called and said, how come I'm not getting any money? I said, I don't know. We investigated. The hospital was taking it. And she had to go to court and prove that was paid.
Right. Yep, that's all it's about. Money, money, money. You know what? They don't care about the children. They really don't, because if they did, they'd do it a little bit different, okay? This whole generation is lost right now, children. It's like they want the kids to fail to control them, you know what I mean?
The American child support system is modeled off the old Russian child support system.
Right. I'll tell you, in Europe they do it. They do it different, Rob. They do it different in Europe. Now, Cleveland, they started a program that was highly contested by the National Child Enforcement Agency, something, right? There was a program that a bunch of Europeans started in Cleveland. And what it is it's a program to do what you were just talking about, help the dad find a job, help the dad, get money for a car or transportation, dad get on his feet, you raise better children like that, you know what I mean?
Right.
And everybody's fighting them. Everybody is.
Well, because they all got their forks in the pie, that's why.
Well, they want the kids to fail so they can control the kids. I hate men, or I hate my dad, whatever.
It's either that or they're too stupid to realize what's going on.
I don't think
we have a lot of leaders, Mike. We have a lot of elected people. who are very, very dumb. They don't look up voting records. They don't take into consideration the best way to do something. They just go along to get along so that they can get money, and that's it.
Yeah, so I think I ruined that poor guy's day today. Unfortunately, I didn't mean to do it, but hey, you had to be honest with him, you know what I mean? So, it was
Yeah, let me interject here. All of family law is totally slanted against men to drive them out of the family so that the women and the children can become wards of the government. First, at the federal level, all welfare, so-called, has to stop. Because until it stops, especially the young women will regard Obama or whoever is misruling the federal government as the father rather than a husband. But we need to have them go and to this priority: 1, get a husband; 2, get a baby. And as long as you have the federal welfare laws, that's not going to happen. And of course, most of the family courts many of them at least, are controlled by man-hating women.
Well, Hitler said, first you get the women, then you've got the children, and so follow the men.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Dave. Well, we've come to the part of the show where I'm going to let you discuss what's on your mind.
Okay. Well, again, getting back to the Libertarian Party versus John Kasich and his Re-Election Protection Act, the case of getting Charlie Earl for governor back on the ballot and Steve Lineberry for Attorney General back on the ballot is still before the court. They may not be back on by the time of the May 6th primary. And again, to remind everyone, if you want to join the Libertarian Party of Ohio, the only way to do that is to ask for a Libertarian ballot on May 6th. We also need at least 500 votes for Bob Bridges for Auditor of State. That's a write-in. Make sure to spell the name right, Bridges. And for Kevin Nedler, Knedler, for Secretary of State. This will keep the Libertarian Party on the ballot. And we consider it very important. I know, and I respect those of you who are still trying to save the Republican Party, but if you fail, you have another home. Consider us as being Plan B.
Something, Dave? I just want to interject here for a second. I really liked Kasich, and I really liked the speaker. Right up until the moment they decided to use the committee to overturn legislation. Okay, the legislators voted against the Medicaid. And then they fired, I guess, 2 of the guys on the committee, replaced them with somebody who would vote for it, and then overturned the legislation. And then it went to the court, and the Republican judge stuck with them.
Well, also remember that Kasich and the Republican legislature have raised spending in Ohio 20% since he came to office. Now, that's more than the population increase in Ohio and the official inflation rate combined. Is that conservative? Is that lower taxes, less government? I think not. Yes, he's done some slight reductions in the income tax, but he's raised the sales tax. He's essentially raised the property taxes by getting rid of a lot of exemptions. So Charlie Earl and the Libertarian Party could do much, much better.
Can you imagine, though?
Do we have time to talk about the international situation?
Well, sure, but can you imagine for a minute? If you're an avid football fan and the referees were all of a sudden biased,
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine how those games would turn out?
I'd become very angry. There was an actual case in Cleveland several years ago where the fans became very upset, and they went onto the field and they threw bottles and did other rude, uncouth things. And everyone did not. Do you remember that? I'm not.
Yeah,
even sure
because the referee made a bad call.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people denounced them for their behavior. My thought was that if only they cared as much about what's happening to their country as what happened in that game, even if they cared only half as much, we would save the country.
Exactly.
If you could only transfer their feelings about the game, about the bread and circuses, if you want to be blunt about it. Alex Jones has done a good job communicating that concept of how the sports, the obsession with national sports today is really a distraction, just like in ancient Rome.
Although I love Alex Jones, I don't want to turn it into the Alex Jones show. I mean, there's...
Right. Well, you did broadcast.
Right, but I mean, there's so many people like Glenn Beck today. Now, I never trust Glenn Beck. He does say a lot of good stuff, and he's got a lot of good information. But he did say today, he admitted on air that he was wrong. And he admitted what he did and how stupid he was. And that takes a pretty big man to admit all that.
This is true. And he has had G. Edward Griffin on his show in the past explaining the Federal Reserve System and telling the history of his book, Creature from Jekyll Island, which is a very good book if you want to understand the Federal Reserve, and I hope everyone listening will have the opportunity to read it.
Right. Well, continue with what you were going to talk about.
Okay. We're being pushed into World War III. Putin is being portrayed as a new Stalin. Russia is being portrayed as the enemy, as the aggressor. But the facts actually are that the democratically elected government of Ukraine was overthrown by a group including the European Union, including the United States, including our CIA, and that when Putin encouraged the people of Crimea to secede from Ukraine, he was not committing any major aggression, because the majority, great majority of the people of Crimea were of Russian descent, and the Russian troops in Crimea were there by treaty. This is just another attempted effort to start World War III. We had the Syrian situation last summer when the American people rose up, and by better than 9-1, with some phone calls to some congressmen being over 100-1 against meddling further in Syria. Now Obama is still meddling in Syria, and strangely enough supporting the Al-Qaeda, or more accurately, the Al-Qaeda groups in Syria. But there is a drift, more and more of a drift toward World War III. The only way we can stop that is to bring all of our troops home, stop all foreign aid, which not only is unconstitutional and counterproductive when we give it to both sides, but we, meaning our government, is $17 trillion in debt. We just don't have the money. And of course, we need to get the United States out of the United Nations and the United Nations out of the United States. We also need to ratify the Bricker Amendment. John Bricker was a United States Senator back in the early 1950s. And unfortunately, through most of the 20th century, there developed the idea that treaties could change the Constitution and deprive American people of their rights. Now, any rational student of history knows that the founding fathers would never have accepted this evil concept, but unfortunately, with precedents over the last 80 to 100 years, it has begun to stick as a legal concept. So Senator Bricker proposed a constitutional amendment clearly stating that no treaty could ever be used as an excuse to deprive Americans of any of our God-given constitutionally guaranteed rights. So the Bricker Amendment is a very important thing to do. If I were to be elected, I would propose it.
Mike.
I think I call that the Bankers' War, about Ukraine. I mean, hey, they did to Kosovo, NATO did. They gave Kosovo to the Albanians.
Mm-hmm.
So why not allow Crimea to go to the Russians? And heck, what it is, it's the East versus the West, where you got the West being, pro-Nazi regime, and you got the East being pro-Soviet. And they don't want the European Union banks, in Ukraine or in Russia. So, or they don't even want Ukraine being, part of NATO, because NATO is a threatening force to Russia. And who wants a threatening force on their doorstep? And plus, what Mr. Macko said earlier about the king of Russia back in, during the time of World War I, Putin is not a communist. They call him a KGB agent, okay? Putin is an ultranationalist, okay? He believes in the Russian kingdom, just as the king did, and he believes in the church, just like the king did. Putin's become hardcore Russian Orthodox now. Just as you have the Islamist, Muslim that believes that if they get, if they die, they'll go to heaven and have 17 virgins. Putin believes if, he gets taken out in war, he's going to be sitting with the Archangel Michael in heaven. Okay? I don't agree with it. It's a little bit dangerous, but, hey, he's fighting the bankers. These corrupt people out of the West. So I wouldn't have done it in that kind of manner, though.
Also, Putin has given sanctuary to refugees, to a refugee from persecution, namely Edward Snowden. Back during the Cold War, after the Hungarian Revolution, Cardinal Manzetti was broken out of his prison, and he went to the U.S. Embassy for sanctuary. In many respects, the U.S. and Russia have reversed the positions that we were in during the Cold War.
Yep. That, unfortunately, that is true. But again, it's Soros. Wherever Soros and his group go, bad things happen. He was in Yugoslavia. Just to note, I never liked Slobodan Milosevic, in Serbia. What he did was, you want to talk about bad communist leadership, the guy played the people that he was a nationalist, but he was really a communist. And he would shut down the freeway so his son can drive the Lamborghini while families couldn't feed their family, for a whole month almost. And the bad point, the really bad point as Americans, we got to think about, why was the CIA running and paying for elections in another country? I don't get it. That's not democratic. It's not representation of our forefathers or the Republic.
We got along without a CIA from 1789 until after World War II. My rule of thumb is that any agency that we got along with until the 20th century is one we can get along with without now. The CIA is originally it was set up to allegedly protect America during the Cold War, but it's obviously been totally taken over by the enemy, and now it's used against the American people, just like the National Security Agency, all of the FBI too. They should all be abolished. We got along without them for over 100 years.
The thing is, if you remember, Mr. Macko, Hoover, okay? Hoover was I believe Hoover was a patriot, okay?
I used to believe that too.
And what I read about him and researched is he got all the politicians and he made files about them. And so finally, I guess, after he passed away, they found out that, I guess, Hoover was a cross-dresser or something. You know what I'm saying?
No one should have any agency for 48 years.
You're right. Though the thing was, one thing I liked about, Hoover and McCarthy in that era is they were trying to get the communists out of the country.
Well, McCarthy was a patriot. That's why he was killed. Hoover was not. If you study his, Eustace Mullins is the best source on J. Edgar Hoover. I fell for the Hoover propaganda when I first became when I became an adult and began to study the situation. But the more I've studied, Hoover was not on our side. Hoover was part of the problem. McCarthy was totally different. He was a patriot, which is why they killed him.
And that's why they make him a bad guy now too.
Oh yeah. They're still afraid of him over 50 years after he died, because they don't want anyone else looking at the traitors in the government now.
Right.
I visited Senator McCarthy's grave in Appleton, Wisconsin, and he's a hero. When the Venona papers were revealed in the early 1990s, after the Soviet Union was either fell or was phased out, or whichever way you want to look at it, the Venona papers showed that if you could criticize Joseph McCarthy or Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society, or any of the anti-communist patriots, that they underestimated just how bad the situation was here, that the government was actually infiltrated much worse than they thought it was.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gentlemen, I think this is where we're going to leave off tonight. We've only got a couple minutes. So, Mr. Macko, if you would like to give your web address out again, now would be the time.
I certainly would. That's www.mackoforliberty.org.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, God bless you all, and God bless America. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Good night.